Environmental group claims raw log exports are skyrocketing in BC. The Wilderness Committee says raw logs are leaving the province in record levels. And although that may sound good for the economy, they also say that jobs are leaving. And with more on this, we're joined by a Skype in Victoria by Torrance Coste, the Vancouver Island campaigner for the Wilderness Committee. Thanks so much for being with us, Torrance.
Thanks so much for having me on today.
So let's first of all talk about the numbers. How many raw logs are leaving?
So in the last few years, we've hit record numbers. All the last 4 years have been records. We're exporting over 5.5 million cubic meters per year. The record was 2013 with 6.5 cubic meters per year.
Wow.
Cubic meter, for your viewers, is about the same size as a city telephone pole. So that puts it into perspective. 6.5 million city telephone poles are leaving the province unprocessed every year.
So let's talk about, first of all, the demand. Where is this demand coming from?
Mostly from the Asia Pacific, the biggest markets, China, as well as Japan and South Korea as well.
And so let's talk about raw logs themselves. Now, like, these are cut down and they leave, and you say there's no real economic benefit to BC in that process.
Right. So obviously, a wood product, be it lumber or a 2x4, something like that, and better yet, actual things made out of wood are going to bring in a higher value than just a raw log. You know, cutting a tree down and shipping it away it's the same as exporting our bitumen as a raw resource.
Right.
It puts as little value back into the provincial economy as possible. And as a result, the forest industry in British Columbia is far less value, both in terms of earnings and in jobs, than forest industries in other provinces like Quebec or Ontario.
Right. Now, how does this situation come about? I mean, how has this gone on for so long? How has this been created, and how can we change it?
So British Columbia has always exported some raw logs. So the forest industry is obviously more than 100 years old, and a few logs have always left the province for the States or for Asia at some capacity. We've really seen a spike in the last 25 years or so, since the early 1990s, and it's because the governments that have been in power since then have permitted so much more of this. There used to be more stringent restrictions on raw log exports. The current government has just allowed this practice to go through the roof. What we need to do is be reining that in, because at the same time that raw log exports have increased to all-time record levels, we have fewer mills operating in British Columbia, especially here on the coast, than we ever have before.
And is that because British Columbia mills can't be as competitive with other mills around the world?
That's right. So the logging companies that are actually doing the harvesting can make more money selling raw logs to China than to BC mills. That's because the labor costs are so much cheaper there. But what that argument is saying is that if the logging industry can't make profits cutting down BC forests and selling it to BC mills, then the only way forestry is profitable is by exploiting labor conditions in China. I don't accept that. We need to make BC forests work for BC citizens. We've done it before, other provinces do it, and we need to be getting back to that. Overall, we need to be bringing the rate of cut down. We've overcut too many of our forests for too long. We need to lie in the bed we've made. In order to reduce the rate of cut and not devastate the families and the jobs that rely on the forest industry, we need to be getting as much value as we can from every tree that we cut down, and we're simply not doing that right now in British Columbia.
Now, your concerns must also be environmental, not just economic.
Of course. So again, you know, when you're exporting a raw product, to make the same amount of money, you need to harvest far more. You know, that fuels unsustainable forest practice. It fuels the kind of overharvest, the kind of clear cutting that we're seeing in so many parts of the province. Again, especially here on the coast where it's most market. We need to be bringing that rate of cut down. We need to be giving our forests more time to heal and get healthy. You know, forests that are standing for longer periods of time they're gonna purify our water. They're gonna provide habitat for endangered species. Most importantly, they're gonna sequester carbon. Leaving forests standing and managing healthy, abundant forests is the biggest step that we in British Columbia can take to mitigate the climate crisis, which is the environmental challenge of our time. We need to be cutting less, and we need to be maximizing the value for the forest that we are cutting.
Okay, well, Torrance, thank you for sharing your perspective with us.
Thanks so much for having me on today.
And it's Torrance Coste of the Wilderness Committee.